this is Max. Today I'm going to show you how to transplant the basil from its original container into a little bit bigger container like this. Now basil is a small seed, so for me, it's hard for me to work with those small seeds, so I end up just taking a pinch of them and sprinkling them over one of these 6-cell planters, and then I see how many germinate, and then from there I go and divide it up into the individual plants. But I have my basil plants ready to transplant into a bigger container. I got my soil mixed up right here. I'm going to use these 2-inch cups. So I take my soil mix, I just loosely pack I don't try to compress this down at all. I just loosely try to fill that up to the top. Once I water it, it's going to automatically sink down anyway, so I don't need to try to compact it any more than what it'll naturally compact once I plant the plant. And I also want this kind of loose and full of air. I want those roots to be able to get plenty of air and to be able to expand in that loose medium. Now, I like this little tool. This is a little tool I bought. I can't remember how much they cost, $4 or $5, but it's just a little metal tool. One end's thicker than the other. You don't need to buy this. You can go use if you got an old piece of silverware, an old utensil, just something that's not going to bend, you can use that just as well too. Now, for you kids that are under 18 watching this, do not go get your mom's nice silverware. I don't want her calling me, telling me I told you to go get her silverware. But you need something that's not going to bend. So the first thing I want to do is I want to be able to put the plant inside of this. So I can either use this tool here, and I'm going to make a little hole, just push that in, make a little hole that I can drop the plant in, or I can use a Sharpie, some type of a pin, just something that you can get a little hole to put the plant in. Okay, so now I use my trusty fork here, my little trusty little thing. This is why I need it so it doesn't bend. I can put that down in the side and lift these out. Now, you can see I got a nice roots being developed there. I got a little careless in planting seeds. This looks like it has 4 or 5, probably about 10 parsley plants, 10 basil plants in here. So I carefully kind of start to pull these apart. Try to keep as much of the roots intact. Now I get a piece like that. That's why I made that hole. I can just drop that in as far as I can get it. And there you go. Start dropping that in. Then as if by magic, watch how this happens. You get that root in there. As if by magic, the soil just forms right around that root, and you've got a new pot for your basil plant. And these basil plants are just amazing on how they smell, even at this young stage right now. I mean, I can smell the basil, and I love the smell of basil. It's fun to cook with, and it's nice that even if you have some extra basil plants, just put them by your bed as you go to bed at night. Hang them up in your kitchen. Just let that smell, that aroma, go throughout your house. Okay, there you go down here. Okay, now I'm taking the biggest plants out of these cells. Now this is what I would have preferred. This just has 2 plants in there. I didn't like to get 10 plants in there, but now I want you to show you something. See, now that I got just 2 plants in there, and this is kind of big, now that little hole that I talked about doesn't work. So what I do is I'm gonna dump that back in. I'm gonna plant this all the way in like this, because I really only want the top part of that. But I set that in there, and then as if by magic, it fits right in there. I gently just put some soil on each side. I'm really not packing it down. I'm just trying to get the soil in there. So I do that, put it in there, and there you go. Here's another one. I got a big root here. I don't want to pull those roots away from the plant or that soil, because those root hairs are embedded in there. So I just put it inside of there like that. Lightly put some of this in here, and voila, there you go. Just a note here again, I don't try to make them this thick, and I don't like them this thick on there, but you know, sometimes I guess I'm a spastic trying to plant some of these small seeds and I just get too many in a cell and I have to deal with it. Okay, I've got all of these transplanted now into these containers. There's on here, I've made my label so I can remember what this is, specifically the cultivar. I've also made a note in my notebook. I carry a little notebook like this with me on here, and each page represents a day or so, and I can write what I did that day just to keep my notes. So I made a note in here that Basil, Genevieve, I transplanted 32 into 2-inch pots. Now this is ready to go back up here under the lights. Now this basil is going to grow really quick on here, so I'm going to have to get it transplanted outside. It'll only stay like this for a couple of weeks. So at the most, it's going to go pretty quick. Once I transplant it outside, if you leave the 2 bottom leaves on there, the plant will keep growing. You'll cut the main leaf, cut the main stem off, leave the 2 bottom stems coming out at the base of the plant. And next thing you know, you'll have 2 plants, two basil shoots starting up. So you'll be able to harvest this pretty much all year long. Basil you can harvest for about 4 months, 3 or 4 months, so you're not going to be able to typically bring it in and harvest it over the winter. That's just the life of the plant. Now, one thing some of you may have asked, well, why don't I just take it from this state like this, right outside, and transplant it like this? And sometimes the reason you do that is because not all of these may live on here. And I want I'm gonna disturb the roots while they're small, and some of the smaller plants and even some of the bigger plants, if I've disturbed the roots too much, they're gonna die. But these plants in here, once they're planted like this, the ones that live, they're gonna have a nice root ball inside this 2-inch square cup on here, and that'll be plenty to go plant outside in your garden and have it live. Most of these I will be planting out in our high tunnels. I won't be planting these out in the open. The high tunnels, they grow really well inside there. If you do plant it out in the open, try not to let it get as much direct sun and wind and get beat up. You won't have as good a quality plants. Okay, thank you for watching, and that's how I transplant the basil and get it growing so it can go out into my garden.